station plus 6 minutes. Pulse is 45. Respiration 10. Looking good, Cole.
The hell happened? Oh, God.
That opening sequence always gets me. This came out back in 2009, and even today, it can make me feel pumped. This is one of the reasons why I hold Infamous, as well as the entire Infamous series, in such high regard. Hello, I am Faceless Opinion, and welcome to the video. By looking at the title, you can tell what the topic for this discussion is. In my opinion, I believe that Infamous and the community surrounding it as a whole is not as well known as it should be. It had favorable reviews, so much so that DC Comics ran a 6-issue series following the events of the first game and led up to its sequel. Not to mention, when the PS4 was announced, one of the first games that was going to be released for it was an Infamous title. Yet things have been quiet since then. Nothing mentioned whatsoever. You could say that it has faded into obscurity. That's why I consider it to be a bit underrated. You can make the argument that since it is a PlayStation exclusive, that it wasn't able to reach a larger audience, resulting in it not having a larger presence. I disagree with that 100%. You have games like God of War and Uncharted that are PlayStation exclusives, but are well known and have really big followings. Same thing can be said about Halo and Gears of War on the Xbox side of things. Well, whatever the reasons may be for it, that is not what I want to talk about to you today. I don't want to talk about its decline. No. I want to talk about the things that made it good to begin with. Why it is that I consider this to be one of my all-time favorites. Let's give this game some love, shall we? When it comes to superhero games, what is the first thing that pops to mind? Perhaps the Batman Arkham games, Spider-Man PS4, maybe something else altogether. Every major game that is in this genre is based off of an already established IP. The list is long enough, it would be easier to tell you all the games that are original ideas and concepts that don't have a quote-unquote mainstream hero in it. Sure, it can be exhilarating playing as one of your favorite heroes, or villains. I mean Deathstroke in Injustice, but that is not really the point, is it? The point I'm trying to make is that there's nothing wrong in thinking that, oh, look at that, they're making another game about so-and-so, insert random character here. Come on, when are we going to get something new, something different? That is where Infamous enters the equation. Is it the first game to enter the superhero gaming genre that isn't based off of a comic, TV show, or movie? I significantly doubt it. I'm fairly sure there's something that predates it. I would be shocked if there wasn't. No matter how vast or minuscule that particular list may be, or even if those games are actually good, what matters is that we need something that is new, something that doesn't follow the mold. One issue that I have with games that are based off of an original source material is that you don't have as much creative freedom to do things that would be considered risque or even taboo, where you are not allowed to deviate from the established canon. Take, for example, that a new Batman game has been made and they decide to do something different. They decide to break his one rule and he kills someone. Fans would be upset by this since it goes against the character's values. And I agree with that. The source material should never be disregarded. However, I would be lying to say if I weren't curious as to how that would play out. It would be a twist that wouldn't follow the same cookie-cutter routine. Compared to a new IP, you get a figurative blank check on how you want to establish the rules of your world. No limitations, no holds barred, something in which the first Infamous game was able to do when it first came out. One of the biggest draws for me when it comes to all the Infamous properties is the powers. I would argue that this is the biggest appeal, without a shadow of a doubt. And why wouldn't it be? Here is a list of some of the powers that we were able to use throughout all the games and add-ons. Lightning, fire, ice, smoke, neon, video, concrete. Hell, we even got vampire abilities at one point. And those are powers that player characters have access to. I haven't even gone started on all the crazy things that some of the antagonists can pull off. I won't go into extreme detail about what every single person can and can't do. That alone can be a separate video. Here's a brief rundown of all the abilities that I think are worth mentioning. Being able to transform people and yourself into monsters, telekinesis, all the weird crap the Beast can do, time travel. Yeah, you heard me right. Somebody has the ability to travel through time. This franchise is crazy, and I love it. The sheer quantity is impressive. However, somebody's probably asking, are any of those powers actually good or just ass? My response is that most of the powers showcased throughout the series is outstanding, mainly because of how versatile a power set can be. Let's take a close look at Cole's lightning and see all the functions that it can do. Why Cole and not someone else? Main character for 2 games and the power we see the most, which consists of grinding on power lines, forming a shield, generating explosions, slowing down time to fire a highly energized beam, healing and stealing neuroelectric energy from others, creating an electrical vortex, and summoning lightning from the sky. With such incredible feats of power, it is also important to give weaknesses as well, to make sure that they aren't too overpowered. 2 of Cole's biggest weaknesses are large bodies of water, which can kill him almost instantly, depending on how deep it is, and blackout areas, locations with no power source for Cole to replenish his electricity, which will leave him at a major disadvantage. The fact that we can see these people with imposing abilities and that they were given an Achilles heel to make sure that they aren't unstoppable really shows how the people over at Sucker Punch put in the time and effort to make a polished power system. It is important to have good and compelling characters in your story, because they are the ones that are going to tell it. No one wants unlikable characters. For the most part, I think Infamous handles their characters well. Between 3 main title games and 2 standalones, I only remember there being 1 character I have a disdain for. Maybe 2. While the vast majority range from great to passable, factoring what their intended role was in the grand scheme of things. For example, I like Alden. I think he's a fine character. Hand down one of the best boss fights in the series. Don't believe me? Check out this chestnut.
Now. Holy shit.
Ignorant pissant! This is what my father wanted. Me, governing all that I could see. My destiny will be fulfilled. You're like Kessler, craving what doesn't belong to you. None of you understand, see the truth, but I do. I see it all.
Told you, it's a fun fight. However, I don't consider him a great villain. Compared to other antagonists like Kessler, Bertrand, and the Beast, Alden comes off as a small fry. Like I said, nothing against him. That's just how it is. Not everybody can be at top level. Let's discuss the characters that I consider to be the top level, the high tier, starting with the villains of Infamous, because I love a good villain. And the names I mentioned before are some of the best in the series. Starting with Kessler. I consider him to be a tragic figure, someone who's plagued by guilt and self-loathing for not stepping up to the plate and trying to prevent calamity, which led to the destruction of the world and ultimately the death of his family. That event broke him, causing him to travel back in time to stop the coming storm, which in turn kickstarts the events of both Infamous 1 and 2. in an attempt to, spoiler alert, even though is it really a spoiler if the game came out 11 years ago? Anyways, so that Cole, his younger self, in a different timeline, would be ready for the coming storm, going so far to kill the love of his life to do so to prevent the apocalyptic future of his time. Bertrand, who is my all-time favorite character, has the interest in putting superpowered individuals in a bad light, showing the world that conduits are evil and inhuman, by letting swamp monsters and super soldiers run crazy in his town, which is ironic since Bertrand himself has powers and has the ability to turn himself into others into monsters, thus highlighting his contradictions. Then we get to the Beast. This is the reason why Kessler did all that he did. This guy was built up to be a force of nature that could destroy everything. The first game was dedicated to get ready to deal with him, while the second was trying to figure out how to stop him. Enough about the antagonists of the series. Let's discuss the opposite end of the spectrum. Cole McGrath is our main central character for the first two games, and we get the most development from him. Starting off as a bike courier who gets his world turned upside down, Cole must decide where to use his newly acquired electric abilities for good or evil. With new threats popping up, he must evolve his powers further to combat all that try to get in his path, all while having to deal with whether his allies can trust him or vice versa. Location. One thing that I feel like is overlooked in most media is the setting. The reason I consider setting to be just as important as any character, if not more so, is that it helps establish the theme. What I mean by that is, let's take for example Skyrim. It takes place in a fantasy-esque setting, which gives the vibes of adventure and mysticism. However, it is not as cut and paste as that. Skyrim is also plagued with conflict, with it right in the middle of a civil war and the sudden return of the dragons, leaving things in a chaotic state. This, in turn, gives the player a subconscious thought that I could be attacked anywhere and by anything, ranging from bandits to wild animals. Vampires, giants, and even demons are fair game. But Faceless Opinion, I hear you say, why are you talking about Skyrim? I thought this video was about Infamous being underrated. Yes, you are quite right. Let's change scenery. That's better. Infamous 1 takes place in the New York-inspired Empire City. This location is a disaster, first being ravaged by the Blast, an explosion that obliterated 5 city blocks, killing thousands, and generated a plague as a side effect, resulting in the city being locked down and quarantined, causing an increase in gang violence across the Neon, Warren, and Historic District. Empire City is in a state of ruin that gives off an aura of gloom and hopelessness, as well as a sense of disgust with all the trash everywhere. This is a bad situation that nobody wants to be a part of. In Infamous 2, we have the exciting new location of New Marais, this New Orleans-inspired town which has a more lovely aesthetic compared to Empire City, but is even more dangerous. At first glance, it does not seem too bad. The only real threat you have to come across is the militia being ruled by the human purist, Joseph Bertrand. However, things change with the introduction of the swamp monsters that take up residence in the nearby bayous, and the superpowered mercenary squad, Wehrmacht 88. To make matters worse, yes, things can and do get worse. You have the Beast making his way down to New Marais from an Empire City that is now non-existent and leaving the entire eastern seaboard a smoldering mess in his wake. The theme here is stress, and having to deal with immeasurable odds and a time crunch to prepare for the coming storm. This is the worst Mardi Gras ever. Now, Infamous Second Son is in a different boat compared to its predecessors. Instead of taking place in a fictitious city, Second Son is set in Seattle. While making your way around the city, you will see a large military presence, whether it be a squad on patrol on the sidewalks or APCs driving downtown. That would be the Department of Unified Protection, whose job is to locate and apprehend all conduits. They will go to extreme measures to do that, setting up checkpoints with scanners, have cameras set up on every corner, establishing outposts in every district by erecting concrete fortifications, wrecking the bridge, preventing escape, and placing the city under martial law. The DUP have gone even so far by detaining innocent people and locking them up in cages without just cause. The authoritarianism that is on display rivals George Orwell's 1984. The only way to combat the DUP and their blatant abuse of power is to topple their empire from the ground up. No game is without a flaw, and with how much I've glorified the infamous franchise, I should highlight the shortcomings as well. It is only fair. I don't want to be accused of being biased. I won't cover things like it becoming repetitive or having glitches. Those are more of blanket statements, and those types of arguments can be used on literally any video game ever. Name one that doesn't become repetitive or have bugs. With that out of the way, let's get judgmental. One issue that I have with Infamous, particularly the first one, would be performing stunts. I personally found a decent amount of them to be challenging, and I can never manage to do them all, like Whack-A-Mole, where you have to kill a conduit by only using Thunder Drop. Do you have any idea how durable conduits are, or how much height you're going to need to pull that off? By the time you scale a building high enough to manage that, they're either A, out of range, or B, on the rooftop waiting for you and blast you off like it's nothing, having to do the whole thing over and over again. Calm down, Faceless. Calm down. I don't know if you can tell, but I have a history with this one. Or trying to perform Splash and Crash, where you have to hit an enemy in the air with a lightning bolt, then following up with a thunder drop. First, that sounds unnecessarily complicated. And two, fuck Thunder Drop. I don't know. Maybe this is more of a nitpick than anything, and I just suck. Leave a comment down below if you never had issues with performing stunts, or that some of them were just tedious. I'm just really curious about this one. It's been on the back of my mind for a while. One thing I know for a fact is that the karma system is the worst thing going for this game. I do not like binary moral choices. I think it restricts what you may want to do, especially when it tells you that this is the good choice and that is the evil choice. There is no ambiguity with your choices, no gray area. Not to mention that certain powers are restricted if you want to do the hero or villain playthrough. You want to fire ice rockets at enemies, freezing them solid? I'm sorry, that is for heroes only. Or you want to do a cool lightning move that makes you feel like Emperor Palpatine? Nah fam, that's only for evil people. It also doesn't help that the karma system gets worse with each main title. Now that I'm thinking about it, what is the point in having a moral system if the evil ending is always going to be considered non-canon? Really makes you wonder. Well, I laid everything out for you. The good, the bad, and the downright ugly. I know I didn't cover everything. The video would be a lot longer otherwise. I just wanted to highlight the series as a whole because it's been a few years since we had any new content come out. 2014 to be more exact. Will we ever get a new game? I don't know. I would be open to the idea of a new game coming out. It would actually give me a reason to get the PS5. But that is entirely up to Sucker Punch. For now, we just get to reminisce. If you've played any of the Infamous games before, was my take spot on? If you never played them, did I inspire you to check it out? Leave your comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. I have more content lined up in the future. And until next time, I will see you all on the flip side.